Hello, my name's Nick Norby, and I'm the host of History Up in Smoke, cigar chat of classical icons where I discuss individuals from all epochs of history. In this installment, I'm going to be talking about and discussing perhaps the greatest military general in all of human history, Hannibal of Carthage, who, during the Second Punic War against Rome, almost single-handedly decimated the entirety of Rome's armies. And had he taken over Italy, he would have changed and altered the trajectory of human history as we know it. But before we discuss Hannibal any further, let's go grab a cigar. Took a few extra minutes to enjoy a little bit more of this cigar. But as I was stating right before I went to this little break, the Romans were completely devastated. They lost their leader, they lost 15,000 men. They had been, the battles that they were losing had been piling up one after the other. Hannibal was getting the best of them every single time. Now, a new council was appointed, and his name was Fabius Maximus. He was the new chosen leader of the Roman armies. There's actually going to be two armies this time, which were going to combine to crush Hannibal. However, Fabius Maximus decides to take a totally different approach. He does like a 180 on everything that they'd been doing up to this point. Instead of attacking Hannibal and his men with the two armies, where at this point in time they significantly outnumbered Hannibal, he decides to try and starve Hannibal out. This is an old trick that had been tried many times by people when they didn't want to face them head on. So he begins burning all the crops in the countryside, trying to starve Hannibal and his army out. Well, guess what? It actually almost worked. Hannibal's men were starving so badly, and let me tell you something, when your men are starving and need food and resources, people they will change in a heartbeat. He was actually having men that were very committed to him starting to threaten mutiny or to go over to the other side to the Romans if he didn't do something about this. And Hannibal actually got really spooked about this whole thing. He actually at one point had thought about taking some of his best cavalry and fleeing to Gaul, or modern-day France. But he actually was dissuaded from doing that, and he hung with it, with his men, which that's just not the sign of a good general, at least in my humble opinion. Not if I'm looking at like the likes of Alexander the Great or some of the other fantastic generals from antiquity. But this was also not the way that the Romans fought. The Romans were a very tough, rugged people. They were all in. And people were getting tired of their crops being burnt up, and they wanted to face Hannibal. They wanted to attack and destroy him at any cost possible. Again, like I said, the Roman way was a way of honor. I mean, if I could use a modern day example, what the Romans were doing under Fabius Maximus would be akin to, say, an NFL team saying, oh man, we don't have enough good players at this point in time. We're going to wait a couple years and then we'll go ahead and we'll attack you. No, that's not the way that Rome wanted to do it. They had the manpower to attack Hannibal and do it. So now they switched gears and they were going to face Hannibal and his army head on in southern Italy, in Cannae, or right outside of Cannae. And this was going to be Hannibal's crowning moment, his glory, if you want to put it that way. Rome had amassed a force of 86,000 strong. That's a lot of people in the army. The bulk of their army was made up of infantry. Like I'd said in previous installments, that they were sort of the battering ram. They would just overwhelm their opponent with their sheer numbers. Hannibal had about 50,000, so he has about 36,000 less men. He's outnumbered pretty badly. But I'm gonna have one puff. We're gonna skip the minutia and get right into the battle. Yes, Hannibal had a plan. As the lines were formed and the two sides were facing each other, and again, like I said, the Romans outnumbered them enormously with infantry. The Romans pushed first. They made a huge surge toward the center to try and break that free and cause chaos. And they were pretty much doing that. But on the one side of the flank that was closest to the hills at Cannae, there was also a cavalry of Numidians, and then there was a cavalry of Romans. Well, the Numidians were actually outnumbered here at this point. The Romans had been getting better with their cavalry too. They were getting stronger and they were getting smarter. On the other flank was the Spaniard cavalry. They were outnumbering the Romans 3-1 in that position. So as the battle was going on, waging on, and the Romans were pushing forward just by their sheer power, the cavalries were fighting on each side. The Numidians were getting their butts kicked pretty badly, believe it or not, by the Romans. But the Spaniards that were towards the river and outnumbering the Romans 3-1 crushed the Romans. And the Roman cavalry started fleeing. They were gone. So the Spanish cavalries came back behind. Instead of pursuing the Romans, the cavalry that was retreating, they came behind the army and they went over to where the Spaniards were fighting, or the Numidians were fighting the other Roman cavalry. When the other Roman cavalry saw the Spaniards coming, they fled the battle scene. That is a death knell in the battle. Now you have both flanks collapsing around, and you have the entire cavalry of Hannibal's army and the full force of them encircling you. And it wasn't long before the Romans were 100% encircled. And we were told by Livy that they were in such close quarters that they could barely swing their swords. And they were literally being cut down by the Carthaginian army and the cavalry. When the battle was said and done, over 50,000, I think maybe historians estimate between 50 and 60,000 of the Romans lay dead on the battlefield. Hannibal and his men lost about 4,000 men in total. They took about 19,000 of the Roman soldiers as prisoners of war. It was Hannibal's crowning glory. He had decimated the Roman army. They were in complete chaos. Now at this point in time, one of his generals, let me have a little puff here, says, Hannibal, you need to capitalize on your victory and head straight north to Rome and take the city. Hannibal hesitates. He doesn't want to do it. And his general says, Hannibal, what is wrong with you? We are on the cusp of destroying and defeating the Romans, and you don't want to attack Rome. He said, referring to him, he said, look, you've been given all the gifts on how to win a battle, but you don't know how to use it. He said, the gods gave you many gifts, Hannibal, but they didn't give you all of them. And that's probably a good thing. But historians have been puzzled. Why didn't Hannibal attack Rome? And we can only speculate. We don't know. Some have speculated that because Rome was a fortified city and Hannibal was significantly outnumbered if he attacked Rome, but being it was fortified, they didn't have the means to necessarily attack a city like that. I'll take a quick sip. But they didn't have the means necessary to do that. So that's one possibility. Another possibility, and a strong one, now there's a plane coming over. And this is likely the reason why Hannibal thought that they were too weak at this point to attack the city of Rome. So he does something very interesting to try and conjure up excitement in his native land of Carthage. As 55,000 Romans are laying there, spread out over the battlefield dead, he has his men cut off the fingers on all of them that have signet rings. He has his brother Mago, put them into a burlap bag and ride back to Carthage to inform the Senate there that they were victorious and they needed reinforcements. Guess what? The reinforcements didn't come in time, and it was too late. Hannibal's army was weakened. Rome had had time to regain their strength, and Hannibal's armies were never the same again. I'm going to just ash this real quick. Not to mention, as time passed, Rome got smarter. A general that matched Hannibal in wit. His name was Scipio Africanus, or Scipio the Younger. So, Hannibal was essentially neutralized and he was no longer a threat. And again, as more time passed on, Hannibal had tried to capitalize getting other countries who opposed Rome to fight with him and side with him, and they did. But the Romans kept pursuing Hannibal, and they finally caught up with him. And they had him encircled, and they were about to take him as a prisoner of war and bring him back to Rome alive. Well, Hannibal knew that his time was up, and he grabbed a glass of wine and he poured some poison into the wine, consumed it, and by the time the Romans got there, he was dead on the floor. And that is where Hannibal's story ends. But it didn't end there. Like I said, the Romans were a very ruthless bunch of individuals in the sense that if you messed with them, you were going to feel their full force and wrath. And 3 years later, they went to Carthage and they literally decimated and leveled the city. That's why so many people today, if you mention Carthage or Hannibal, they have no idea who that is. That's because Rome completely blotted them out from history. If you go there today, there's like one monument that is standing there from the time of Hannibal. That's it. No records, nothing. Completely smashed to smithereens. Now, had it been flipped around and Hannibal had overtaken Rome, well, the story would be flipped. It would probably be Rome that was blotted out, and we don't know much about them, but the Romans were victorious. And that's where Hannibal's story ends. I hope you enjoyed this installment of History Up in Smoke. I've got some more great material that's going to be coming down the pike. So if you enjoy cigars and history, or maybe you don't enjoy cigars but you love history, I'd love to see you back. So until next time, take care.